Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the family of a shopkeeper killed in what police called a religiously prejudiced attack describe him as one of their brightest lights. Secret video footage of a fox hunt in the Borders prompts calls for tighter legislation on hunting with dogs.
Yeah, these things happen.
On the wards with the team tackling violence in our accident and emergency departments.
We have had a revolving door process for these patients over all my years of practice until this has been happening. And now we have something which can potentially make a difference.
Also in the programme, we investigate claims that football coaches from ethnic minorities are being left behind because of the colour of their skin. Never mind the dancers, meet the star of this ballet performance, a rug. Good evening. The family of a shopkeeper killed in what police described as a suspected religiously prejudiced attack say they've been moved beyond words by the public's response to his death. Asad Shah died after being stabbed outside his shop in Glasgow Shawlands area last Thursday night. Our Home Affairs correspondent Rival Alderson reports.
Floral tributes to a popular member of the Shawlands community. Newsagent Asad Shah died last Thursday after being stabbed in the street near his shop. The 40-year-old had run the business in the area for several years, and local people say they've been shocked by his death. Mr. Shah's family issued a statement describing him as one of our brightest lights. They went on, "We'd like to express our deepest gratitude to all who've organised and participated in the street vigils, online petitions and messages." The family added, "You've moved us beyond words and helped us start healing sooner than we thought possible. You were Asad's family as much as we are, and we'll always remain with you."
I think most of you are aware of the very sad incident.
Mr. Shah was an Ahmadiyya Muslim. At the mosque in Glasgow where he worshipped, members of that community said they'd been trying to help his family through this difficult time.
We can only go and meet them and offer our condolences, and sympathy. The story is so sad that on each occasion, if they have to repeat and talk about it, it's very, very difficult for them.
A 32-year-old Bradford man appeared yesterday at Glasgow Sheriff Court charged with Mr. Shah's murder. He'll appear in court again next week. Rival Alderson, Reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
The BBC has obtained secret video footage of a fox hunt in the Borders, which has led to 2 men being charged with wildlife offences. The law on hunting with dogs in Scotland is under review amid calls for the legislation to be tightened. Our environment correspondent David Miller reports.
These hounds belong to one of Scotland's 10 remaining fox packs. MSPs voted to ban hunting with dogs in 2002, but mounted packs are still active and insist they operate within the law.
The term fox hunting is a misnomer because, of course, it's illegal to hunt foxes in Scotland. We've got very clear legislation and it's been in place now for over 13 years. We've got fox control where we use hounds to flush foxes to guns.
Before the ban, dogs and riders would pursue a fox across the landscape. If they caught it, the hounds would kill the fox. Now, dogs are used to flush foxes from cover towards waiting gunmen. The foxes must be shot rather than killed by the hounds. Supporters say it's a legitimate part of pest control in our countryside. But the League Against Cruel Sports has passed footage to us of the Jed Forest hunt recorded in February. The League says it shows illegal hunting.
A fox broke out, disappears, but then another fox goes around and you'll see he runs in that direction. But then we were kind of surprised to see him loop back. You see, it's coming back again, and he runs. What happens next is he runs out of sight beneath this ridge, and our cameraman is wondering where he's gone, what's going on, and then he sees a pack of hounds with a huntsman chasing the fox, again out of sight. But it comes back, the fox goes past the terrierman and back into its earth. But then, about an hour later, The terrierman is back at the hole, the huntsman and his hounds are all waiting, and there goes the fox. He's released it, and the hounds go out of it. And, you know, that's hunting. That's not flushing with guns. And, you know, we just didn't see the fox again after that.
We've done what we can to check this footage is genuine, but it'll be up to the courts to decide what it does or doesn't show. 2 men have been charged by Police Scotland. The Jed Forest Hunt says it would be inappropriate to comment. This recording has now been submitted to the Scottish Government's review of the hunting legislation. David Miller, reporting Scotland.
And there's more on that story in a special online report on fox hunting in Scotland, available on the BBC Scotland News website. The SNP leader, Nicola Sturgeon, says she doesn't have the right to rule out a second referendum on independence during the next term of the Scottish Parliament. The Conservatives, Labour and the Liberal Democrats argue that disrespects the no vote in 2014. But Nationalists say there'll only be a rematch if the public demands it. From the Holyrood campaign trail, here's our political correspondent, Glenn Campbell.
I should probably have stuck to the single one, shouldn't I?
A single ice cream, but what about an independence double take? A referendum rerun? The SNP leader is certainly not ruling that out in the next 5 years.
Do you rule it out for the course of the next Parliament?
I don't have the right to rule it out at all, because that's down to the people of Scotland. Now, if people want it to be once in a generation, once in 10 generations, that's exactly what it will be. But equally, if people don't want that and want to have the opportunity to make that decision again, then that is up to the people of Scotland.
Can I ask you to explain how that can possibly be seen as respecting the result of the referendum?
It is absolutely.
There was applause in last night's TV debate for a Conservative challenge over a second referendum, and then the SNP leader won some back.
Because the future of this country should always be in the hands of the people of Scotland.
You said it was once in a generation.
In Perthshire today, you'll have had your referendum. The Tory leader insisted it should be, as the SNP said, a once-in-a-generation event.
I think people are appalled that she says she's going to start a new campaign in the summer to get us back on this again. I stand fully against that. I want to respect the decision that Scotland made and stand up for the 2 million no voters and the rest of the country that just wants to move on.
It's really complicated.
The complication for Labour is that a big minority of their supporters voted yes. But on a visit to a Rutherglen nursery, the party leader made her referendum position clear.
The answer was no, and I think it should be respected. So I'm ruling out a second referendum, but what I do want to do is to focus on using the powers of the Scottish Parliament to make a difference now, and we can do that. We can end austerity using those tax powers. That's what the Labour Party is committed to.
No need to stop these Liberal Democrat presses in Pollokshaws. Their opposition to another vote on Scotland leaving the UK has not changed.
We don't support another referendum. We've just had one. I think it's rather disrespectful. When people decided that they wanted to stay as part of the UK, and just because the SNP did not like the answer, they want to drag it open all over again.
Elsewhere in Glasgow, Nicola Sturgeon's determined to keep her options open. Independence was rejected in the referendum by 55% to 45%. But that Yes coalition, the 45%, stuck with the party in last year's Westminster election, securing them a landslide. The SNP wants to keep that coalition together for May's Holyrood election.
Scotland has the right to make this decision if and when it chooses, but the decision that's being made in 5 weeks' time is about the Parliament that's going to be elected in Holyrood, the decisions that MSPs are going to make, and whether we've got the boldness of heart to use the powers at our disposal to make Scotland a better place.
Health, education, tax and spend will dominate the election debates, but the politics of independence have not gone away.
Goodbye.
Well, perhaps it's not goodbye, because there's been a developing story out of last night's debate. Glenn, Labour appear to have changed their tax policy.
Well, Labour wants to put a penny on all rates of income tax, including the basic rate, but the party leader, Kezia Dugdale, has always been clear that she would protect those on low incomes, those earning less than £20,000, from feeling the the squeeze as a result of that. Now, in the BBC debate last Thursday, she said she would do that using Holyrood's new powers to set new thresholds to protect those on low-income earners. But last night, when she was pressed on this issue by the SNP leader, Nicola Sturgeon, she made reference to the raising of the personal allowance, the point at which people qualify for the basic rate of income tax, a decision taken by the Chancellor at Westminster. He's decided to raise that personal allowance, and Labour, it seems, over the weekend have decided that that fixes their problem for them and that they will not go down the route of setting new thresholds at Holyrood which might cost them revenue further up the scale. Now, Labour's opponents say they're all over the place, but Labour insist theirs is the right policy to generate new cash to help protect public services.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Victims of violence pass through the A&E at Glasgow Royal Infirmary every day, but they aren't just treated by doctors. They're also getting help from so-called navigators, aiming to help them find ways to improve their lives and escape what can be a cycle of violence. James Shaw has been to see how it works.
Meet Tam Begbie and Alan Gilmore, checking in at the start of their shift at Glasgow Royal Infirmary.
We're just wondering if we can go in and see him for a quick blether.
The job title is Navigator because their role is to help people find ways out of lives blighted by violence. As victims, as perpetrators, sometimes both.
When Tam and I arrive, the first place we come into is the A&E itself. We would then find out from the staff who is here. If we haven't spotted them ourselves, we would find out what bay they were in. We would pull up a chair, do a quick intervention with people who might need some support.
Tam is talking to a young woman who's been admitted with a minor injury.
The young woman I was talking to earlier on was admitted with a broken arm. She'd obviously been involved in a violent incident earlier on this evening, and all the intervention done there was maybe make her aware that going out for a revenge attack might not be the best idea for her own health and her own sort of future repercussions of maybe assaulting somebody.
Since the project started last December, many A&E staff have become converts.
I think it's one of the most important initiatives we've had in emergency medicine in my 20 years of practice. And I say that unreservedly because the Navigator project represents an antidote to a degree of complacency that comes from judgment that we have regarding some of the patients that are coming into us. We have had a revolving door process for these patients over all my years of practice until this has been happening. And now we have something which can potentially make a difference and pluck these people from these hopeless situations.
Alongside the benefits for individuals are possible advantages for the NHS if emergency departments are not treating the same difficult cases over and over again. One complex head injury can cost more than £30,000 to treat. That suggests potential savings could be significant. James Shaw, reporting Scotland at Glasgow Royal Infirmary.
Almost 30 years ago, a catastrophic accident occurred at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in northern Ukraine. The explosion and fire killed 31 people, but some claim thousands more have died as a result of radiation released into the atmosphere. Well, our reporter Anne London has been there to find out about the continued impact of the disaster.
Upon entering the exclusion zone, there's miles of wilderness. It looks empty, lifeless. But after 30 kilometres, you happen upon a €1.5 billion project. This is the new safety confinement, which in the course of the next year will be moved over reactor number 4. In Kiev, research on the long-term health implications continues. Victor was one of the liquidators involved in the clean-up of the aftermath. He suffered a stroke just over 20 years ago and twice a year goes for 3 weeks' worth of medical testing.
At that time, we didn't know anything. We had the order to go there and perform our duties. It was not until later that we had dosimeters to check radiation. We worked with enthusiasm, but with no instruments, with no checks.
250,000 liquidators got a lifetime's dose of radiation in 3 months. Only 4 out of 15 of Victor's team are still alive today. Thousands of others have also been affected, most recently due to budget changes, a reclassification of benefits from state to local government spending.
Відповідно, з
Ukraine is spending a lot of money in the east of the country to provide for its defence. This money could have been used to upgrade the level of pension support for these categories of people. As of today, there are about 2 million people who have either suffered from Chernobyl or were clean-up workers at the power plant in Ukraine.
Within the exclusion zone, homes lie abandoned. The worry for some is that those affected by the accident are also being abandoned by their state. For millions, the impact of an accident which happened 30 years ago is still raw, as if it only happened yesterday. Anne London, reporting Scotland.
And you can see Anne London's Yorpa special on Chernobyl at 8:30 tonight on BBC Alpa or on BBC Two on Saturday evening. A strike at secondary schools in Western Bartonshire has resumed, with industrial action taking place today and tomorrow. The stoppage is over a plan to cut the number of principal teachers and run different school departments together, the so-called faculties. The local authority says the system is already operating in many schools across Scotland. Well, let's get the latest sport now from David.
Thanks, Jackie. Good evening. Two former top-flight footballers are claiming that black coaches aren't being given the same opportunities in Scotland as their white counterparts. The pair hope to move into management, but say the colour of their skin is holding them back. Here's our senior football reporter, Chris McLaughlin.
It's Scotland's national game, a game where results don't always reflect popularity. But does our game at least reflect modern Scotland? Not according to two former professional players who are now trying to become managers.
You look at Scotland in particular, from my knowledge, after John Barnes, there hasn't been a black manager in the game.
Kevin Harcourt, they go all the way through the middle!
Personally, I've applied for, certainly in Scotland, at least 10 jobs. And I've had 2 responses back. I'm new into it, I'm trying to get into it, I'm sitting my A licence, but for only to be responded to, I think is not even have an interview, I think there's a real issue in that as well.
It's something that's strongly disputed by the organisation that looks after managers in Scotland. The Coaches and Managers Association said, "We don't recognise this as a problem. Colour, creed or sexual orientation is never a consideration when clubs appoint coaches or managers. The only consideration is ability." There's no way to determine why some coaches get jobs and others don't, and there's absolutely no proof of any racism within the boardrooms of Scottish football. But given the seriousness of the claims, let's take a look at some figures. Around 4% of Scotland's population is classed as non-white. Of the 10,000 Scottish FA registered coaches, around 6% are non-white. But there are no non-white coaches in Scotland's senior 42 clubs. The SFA say they've introduced diversity coaches in a bid to attract more people to the game from ethnic minority groups. The Scottish Professional Football League say they're also committed to campaigns such as Show Racism the Red Card.
I have to say this, I don't want a job based on the colour of my skin. I want a job based on what a chairman thinks that I can bring to the football club.
Now, they may have been surprised and grateful to be making their Scotland debuts in the 1-0 win over Denmark last night. But Kieran Tierney and John McGinn now aim to become regular members of Gordon Strachan's squad. They shone at Hampden on the night captain Scott Brown reached another milestone in his Scotland career. More from John Barnes.
It's become a regular feature for Scott Brown leading out the team at Hampden, but this was his 50th cap for his country.
It's a proud moment for me and my family, but I think the main thing was we got a result yet again and we kept that winning momentum up. And it wasn't the greatest finish to the Euros, but now we need to kick on for this.
Brown had a hand in the goal with the pass, so too did the Danish captain Daniel Agger, as his mistake allowed Matt Ritchie to score his 3rd Scotland goal.
Matt Ritchie says thank you very much.
For Gordon Strachan, it was his 10th 1-0 win as the national manager.
Our team spirit kept us in it, good defending, good goalkeeping. Had a couple of chances in the second half, but basically they were the better side because they are at the top of their game. The result was good. What did we learn? I've got a wider spectrum of players I can pick from now. I've got a couple of young players coming through that we didn't have a couple of months ago, which is great.
Those youngsters were Celtic's Kieran Tierney and Hibernian's John McGinn, who was man of the match. And they now have a desire to be involved when the World Cup campaign begins in the autumn.
Yeah, obviously I've got belief in myself, but I'm realistic as well. There's top players that I'm missing tonight, and they're sitting at home ready for the games in May, so I've just got to concentrate on what I'm doing in my club, and if I get the shout, I'll be ready.
I've not given it too much thought. Obviously it's a target for me, but I just need to perform for Celtic. Then if I perform well enough, hopefully Gordon gives me another chance.
Even the opposition had praise for young Tierney.
And lots of my teammates as well from Denmark said, this guy is really good. And I said, yeah, he's really good. He's only 18 years old, so it's good for Celtic, it's good for Scotland as well.
So plenty for the manager to shout about, with 2 more friendlies to come against Italy and France in the summer.
Now, he was Scotland's first undisputed world boxing champion and is reckoned to be one of the greatest fighters of all time. Now, a touring exhibition has been launched in his hometown of Glasgow to celebrate his achievements. But some of Benny Lynch's most devoted fans are campaigning and raising funds for a permanent tribute. 70 years after his death, Benny Lynch still draws a crowd, today looking at mementos from his glory days. Among the devotees, another champion.
He showed everyone that a wee fella from Scotland could become champion of the whole wide world, and quite a few have done it since. But Benny is still the man. He's recognised as the best boxer Scotland's ever produced.
Meet British and world flyweight champion Benny Lynch.
A tough man in tough times, Benny boxed his way out of the poverty of Glasgow's Gorbals, becoming champion of the world in the mid-1930s.
Lynch brings out his left, follows it with a punch to the jaw, left to the solar plexus, and Palmer's down.
But his fall was as dramatic as his rise. Fighting alcoholism, he retired aged 25. He was dead 8 years later. 7 decades on, boxing fans are campaigning for a permanent memorial.
It was Scotland's first world champion. Certainly the boxing sphere. My memory I kind of think I had a world champion from Scotland, but even before that, in any sphere. So yes, I think it's recognised and should be made because he was a man of the people.
Even if the statue isn't commissioned, Lynch's legend will continue to inspire local fighters.
Being only boxer from the Gorbals, like at my age group, everybody always compared me as the next Benny Lynch, and it's years and years as I've got better and better, getting into the Commonwealth Games and then going professional. It's just, I'd keep the ball rolling, but if I can achieve half of what I achieved, I'll be a happy man.
His career was spectacular, but short. However, Benny Lynch still casts a long shadow over Scottish boxing. And that's tonight's sport, Jackie.
Thank you very much, David. Now, to see it's the unlikely star of a new ballet to be performed in Edinburgh tonight doesn't quite do it justice, as the item in question is, in fact, a rug. Here's our arts correspondent, Pauline McLean.
Its creators promised a shape-shifting 21st century magic carpet. Diagrams of Love, Marriage of Eyes is a collaboration between the English artist Linder and 3 makers at the Dovecote Studios in Edinburgh. It was created for the British Art Show.
This was not going to be one of those household objects that either stays on the floor or on the wall. And the process of constantly having to think about that this will be seen from absolutely every angle, it will have a life of its own and a character of its own, was something that was always at the back of our minds, I think, when we were making it.
For this carpet, as well as being magical, has to move, is the centrepiece of a new ballet, Children of the Mantic Stain.
We got the rug into the studio and she did not behave herself at all. She was absolutely an innate dancer that did what she wanted to. She got the nickname the Diva. So she kind of choreographed us to some degree.
The ballet has been seen once before in Leeds, but this performance in the space where it was made has created quite a stir, with tonight's show completely sold out.
15 years on, after Dovecote was revived, it was a dream that we would take Dovecote into this cross-collaborative world, but I don't think I could have ever imagined that we would have had a dancing rug here on the weaving floor.
After the show, the carpet will be returned to the National Gallery of Modern Art, where the British Art Show continues until May. But with more performances pencilled, this versatile carpet will be on the move in months to come. Polly McLean reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Now here's Andrew Kerr with details of Scotland 2060.
The new national living wage starts on Friday at £7.20 an hour. We'll debate with the political parties what that means for Scotland's employers and employees. Also, the young UKIP candidate who's decided to leave the party, calling it undemocratic. We'll hear from him and get UKIP's response. That's at 10:30 over on BBC Two.
Let's get the weather now from Christopher.
Jackie, thank you. Hello there, good evening. Well, it was another day of sunshine and showers for many, and some of those showers really quite potent with some hail, but a lovely picture there from one of our weather watchers in Lossiemouth. Tonight, still a few showers, actually quite chilly conditions for a few. You can see on the chart there a line of showers courtesy of a weather front just sinking southwards, wintry over the hills, rain for most. Behind it, clear and cold, the blue tinge on the chart there indicating just how cold, perhaps down to around -7 through some parts of Sutherland and Caithness, and certainly through the central belt just a touch milder at around +1 degrees. Now, as we head through towards tomorrow, a few residual showers through the central belt, but really through the course of the day, the focus for any showers will be across the south-east. Elsewhere, it's dry and bright with some decent spells of sunshine, and with light winds, if you get the sun, really quite pleasant, 9-10 Celsius. Now, whilst most of the showers will be across parts of South Lanarkshire, the borders, the Lothians, there is the small chance of seeing 1 or 2 light ones elsewhere, but for most, it's a dry day and a bright day. The wind's light for many, but just starting to increase around the Western Isles and indeed the Northern Isles as we head through the course of the afternoon. And for the rest of the afternoon into the evening, still the risk of 1 or 2 showers across the south, perhaps in towards the central belt for a time, but they go, and then it's largely dry and quiet overnight. But all change, because as we head through towards Friday, a weather front arrives from the Atlantic, bringing thicker clouds, some heavy rain and some strengthening winds. So this is how Friday looks, certainly in the across western parts of the country, heavy and persistent rain. The further east that you are, that way weather lighter and more patchy in nature. It's going to be windy with a strong southerly for most, gusting to gale force around the west coast. As we look ahead then towards the weekend, that weather front starts to slip south of the border, but only to return. So on Saturday, a fairly cloudy and indeed wet day at times. The driest, brightest weather likely across the Highlands and Islands. Elsewhere, though, cloudy and damp, but the winds lighter, highs of 9 or 10. And certainly it looks like it's going to stay unsettled as we head through towards Sunday too. That's the forecast for now.
Thank you very much, Christopher. And now a reminder of tonight's main news. The family of a shopkeeper killed in what police describe as a suspected religiously prejudiced attack say they've been moved beyond words by the public's response to his death. Asad Shah died after being stabbed outside his shop in Glasgow last Thursday. And that's Reporting Scotland. I will be back with the headlines at 8 and, of course, with the late bulletin, which is just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, from everyone in the team across the country, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.